Hello and welcome to another Lumbridge Night guide for free-to-play OSRS. In this guide we're going to go through everything to do with magic, so you can consider this guide the proverbial alohomora for your magic potential. As usual with many of my guides, I'm going to start with questing. Unlike in some of my previous skill guides, magic actually has a couple of quests to offer up front. So the first quest you're going to want to do is the Witch's Potion quest. This nets you 325 XP, and as usual, a link will be appearing in the top corner of the screen there to show you a guide for that quest. Next up, and this is also particularly key for Ironman, is the Imp Catcher quest. This nets you 875 magic XP, as well as the Amulet of Accuracy, which will be key if you can't use the Grand Exchange to start with. Once again, you should be seeing a link to a guide for that quest popping up on the screen now. Finally, you then have the optional 300 XP offered by the X Marks the Spot quest. Again, it's not a lot of XP, so it's up to you where you use this, but I probably wouldn't use this for magic. Next up, we've got starter stats. Generally speaking, this is probably only applicable to Ironmen. If you have access to the GE, you do not need any starter stats. You can buy everything you need from the GE in terms of starter equipment, so you can probably skip to the next section. However, if you are playing an Ironman, you're going to need 24 crafting in order to craft yourself an Amulet of Magic. You'll need a magic level of 7 in order to enchant your amulet once you've crafted it, that is, but from the previous section we should have already attained a magic level of 10, so this shouldn't be an issue. Let's move on to starter kit. You can see the best in slot items on display on the screen there. Starting top to bottom, we have a wizard's hat, black or blue, an amulet of magic or an amulet of accuracy to start with if you are an Ironman, a cape, a wizard's robe top, black or blue again, a staff of earth. I'm going to assume that you can probably buy all the staffs. You definitely need to be using staffs, because if you don't use the staff, then you can't auto cast spells. You have to keep manually clicking, which is just a big no-no for long-term magic training. Technically speaking, Briarfitter's staff is the best free-to-play staff in the game now. That's a recent update that they've made this item free-to-play. However, this requires a 1 in 118 drop from a boss that requires mossy keys to access, so it will take quite a long time, so I'm going to go with stuff that's readily available. Briarfitter's Essence is currently around 8 million coins. If you have the money and you want to splash out, then feel free, but remember that you'll need 30 attack and 30 magic in order to wield it, and it doesn't offer the rune benefits for training that the normal staffs do. You can also see I'm wielding the anti-dragon shield. You can only wield this if you've started the Dragon Slayer 1 quest, which means we'll need 32 quest points on this account. If you can't do that, then use the training shield that you can get from the combat shooter in Lumbridge. For the like slot, we need a Zami monk bottom, and then we need leather vams and leather boots. Again, if you're an Ironman, in order to get the leather vams, you're going to have to craft these yourself, which requires a crafting level of 11, which is cool because that's well within inside the crafting range you're going to need to make your Amulet of Magic anyway. So we'll build up that crafting level at some point and you can upgrade to leather vams. Everyone else can pretty much buy all of these items from the GE. If you're an Ironman and you want to get the best in slot leg items here, I'm talking about the Varrock monk bottoms, you're going to have to head to the Asgarnia Chaos Temple. You can see that on the map there, this is where it's located. And you're going to have to be able to kill level 17 or 22 monks of Zamorak. These obviously are not particularly difficult if you have a high combat level. However, if you are fresh off Tutorial Island or very low level, you may struggle. However, if you have completed the quests that I mentioned earlier, the monks can be safe spot from the doorway. There's a 1 in 20 chance of the Zamorak monk bottoms dropping, so head up here before you get started. The last thing you're going to need in order to train magic is runes. I recommend a full suite of staffs or staves, and initially we're just going to get our free runes from the magic tutor, who's next to the combat shooter. You can see the arrow on the screen there pointing. She will give us 30 mind runes and 30 air runes in order to get the ball rolling. You're going to need to buy some runes. Don't worry though, because for each section I'm going to give you an approximation of about how many runes you're going to need. And on the subject of runes, magic's quite expensive to train because you're going to need quite a lot of runes, especially if you're going all the way to 99. It's going to cost you a hell of a lot of coin, and rune crafting in free-to-play is mega tedious, so I would not recommend rune crafting your own runes. I recommend simply buying your runes. So Ironman, you're gonna get ripped off by having to buy your runes from the various magic shops throughout Galenor. Non-iron, you can obviously buy from the GE, and this will be my recommended method. You can minimize obviously the rune spend by making sure that you use the right staffs, and don't worry, again, I'm going to give you advice on that as well. Just before we start getting into the details of the actual enemies and the training, it's probably worthwhile looking at some actual combat mechanics. So firstly, I have borrowed this handy table which I've spliced up from OSRS Wiki, which is a great resource. It's in all my videos and they are awesome, the team over there. This handy table basically shows you it's all based around the spell that you use in terms of your max hit. Your magic accuracy is extremely complicated. In essence, it's based on your magic level, your magic bonus versus the monster's magic level and their magic defense. Now, I don't want to get any deeper than that. I'll flash the calculations up on the screen. Again, this is from OSRS Wiki. It's really overcomplicated. What I'm going to do for each section is come up with a rough percentage accuracy based off your level and who we're fighting. This combined with the raw experience from casting each individual spell is how I'm going to approximate how many runes you are going to need. Building off of this, every spell has the same level of accuracy. It's purely based off your magic level, not the spell you are using. Equally, magic experience is divvied out as the spell's base experience plus 2 magic experience per point of damage. And when you attack in the regular fashion, that is the non-shield icon, the offensive casting, you also get 1.33 hit points experience. Equally, you can do defensive casting, which then splits your experience between defense, magic, and HP. I do not recommend that you use defensive casting, as there's much faster ways to train your defense, melee probably being the fastest.
So this is the point in the video where I previously brushed over splashing, as at the time I thought it meant manually click casting every spell. I was wrong. It's actually a great method, particularly for the AFK trainer. The first thing to understand in regards to splashing is that it's generally only effective with the strike-based spells. With this in mind, Wind Strike is by far and above the most cost-effective, but also the slowest, while Fire Strike is the most expensive, but fastest. I've created this little guide table to help illustrate this. It should also explain why the strike spells are the most used options, as after these spells, the cost increases exponentially. Also, once you're at level 55 plus, High Alchemy is far more efficient, getting around 78k per hour versus the 7.2k per hour from Windstrike, as well as generating a profit. Obviously this is not as useful for Ironmen, who I recommend look at my alternative methods. The second thing to note is that you will need a full set of plate melee armour, including shield, the fighting or fancy boots, and green d'hide vams, in order to get the highest possible negative in magic attack. This means you'll need 40 range. You can splash without the Vam Braces, though it will make a difference and will result in you landing more hits, killing your target a touch faster. The last thing you'll need is a staff, probably Wind or Earth, so you can autocast, and the runes for either Wind or Earth Strike, as these seem to be the best options in my opinion. Once you have your required splashing gear, you've picked your spell, you just need to head to a safe spottable enemy, preferably one with a high magic defense, and, well, attack them. The captured priest of Zamorak in Varrock Palace is probably a good choice, since he can't attack back, but has some magic defense. With the armor equipped, the vast majority of your spells will miss, but the attack will still register, locking you into an AFK cycle of casting and missing. Unfortunately, Jagex patched splashing such that after 20 minutes your character will stop casting, but as long as you're there to click and continue the attack, you can do this AFK while you're doing other things. And that's really that. You can of course do this all the way up to level 99, which in the case of Windstrike will take over 2 million casts, costing nearly 5 million coins, and take nearly 2,000 hours. Very AFK, as well as reasonably priced, but not very time efficient.
So, stage 1, and I feel like I start all my combat-based guides with this same stage. It's the Lumbridge cows. I know this is a common one, but this is again to slot in with the Ironmen to give them enough cow hides in order to get the crafting levels to craft the leather van braces and amulet of magic that they're going to need. The same alternatives exist as previous. You can do chickens in Lumbridge or seagulls in Port Sarum. As we will be level 10 when we start this, I recommend you use Earth Strike, so you'll need an Earth Staff and approximately 64 Air Runes and 64 Mind Runes. Once we hit level 13, switch to a Fire Staff and cast Fire Strike all the way up to level 17, which will require approximately 168 Air Runes and 84 Mind Runes. All in all, from levels 10 to 17, you should only have to kill approximately 37 cows. Also, if you're an Ironman and you haven't got your crafting level to 24, now is the time to do it. Keep killing cows, collecting the cow hides, and make sure you craft your leather vams at level 11 and your Amulet of Magic at level 24. As the best in slot items are basically available at the start of the game and equipable from level 1, with the exception of the anti-dragon shield, which is only advantageous for its extra magic defense properties. There aren't any equipment upgrades for the end of this section, or in fact for any of the following sections. So let's get on to stage 2. Please like the video and support my content. Thank you, noble knight. I'll apologise straight away for suggesting the same place that I did in my range video. Yes, I'm talking about heading west of Varrock to the Barbarian village, specifically to the longhouse you can see on the screen again here. Obviously you'll see that my character is safe spotting using magic instead of range. The reason for this is that actually the Barbarians are more susceptible to magic damage than Alchemy warriors, who are the other option to train on at stage 2. Again, this location is ideal because there's plenty of Barbarians spawn. It's really easy to safe spot. It's probably harder to get hit than it is to safe spot them. And there's free food. I recommend you stay here all the way up to level 35, which should take you from Windbolt all the way up to Firebolt. You'll see the rune breakdown appearing on the screen now, along with which staff to use and when. As a side note, I did mention that at level 33 there would be an easy way to get the best in slot bottoms, and we've now reached that time. So if you have not got the best in slot bottoms, when you hit level 33 you will unlock the telekinetic grab spell, which is key to this technique. You then need to head to Varrock Palace, and underneath the stairs there is a lone monk of Zamorak. You need to kill him and then telekinetic grab the Zamorak monk bottoms when they drop. This will be very time consuming if you stay on the same world, but what you can do is world hop, so do it on one world. If you don't get the drop, jump to another free to play world, kill him again, and rinse and repeat until you get the desired drop. You can also now telekinetic grab gold ore, gold, and the gold necklaces underneath the Varrock West Bank. Not only is this a useful source of gold and an additional training method, it can also be used to make money because the gold ore's value on the Grand Exchange is generally higher than the cost of the runes to cast telekinetic grab. Therefore, you can use world hopping to telegrab gold ore before selling it on the Grand Exchange for a profit. Nice. Okay, so now we've hit level 35, we're on to stage number 3. For this stage, we're going to be training on the hill giants in the Edgeville dungeon. This should take us from level 35, where we've been utilising Firebolt, up to Wind Blast at 41, all the way up to Water Blast at 47. In terms of the rune breakdown, should be on the screen now. Hill giants are good because they're very easy to safe spot, they're very numerous, they drop the giant key, which allows you to fight one of the 2 free-to-play bosses, Obor, and they have some decent rune drops and big bones, so if you're training prayer, you can get some reasonable prayer experience, and obviously for our magic inventory, we can get some decent runes off these guys. From one type of giant to another, we're now going to be training on moss giants. This is going to take us from level 50 all the way up to level 60. So the majority of the combat, we're going to be using Water Blast up to Earth Blast up to Fire Blast. The rune breakdown should be appearing on the screen now, as well as the number of moss giants you will need to kill. Moss giants can essentially be thought of as better versions of the hill giants. They have more health, making them a bit more AFK, while they have the same magic defense, and they're just as easy to safe spot and have superior drops. And you can also get the Mossy Key, which allows you to fight Bryophyta, the other free-to-play boss.
During the course of this section, you're going to hit 55 magic. This offers up arguably the most useful spell in free-to-play, particularly for Ironman. And I am of course talking about high-level alchemy. Low-level alchemy is okay, and you learn that at level 21, but the amount of coins you receive per alch is pretty low. Not as good as what you get on the GE, which is obviously not really ideal, and certain shops in the game will actually outsell the low alch value or equal it, meaning that you've kind of wasted your nature runes, particularly if you're an Ironman. However, High level alchemy is much better, as for certain items it gives a greater or equal to coin value than the Grand Exchange. So it's a very easy and convenient way for Ironmen to get a good amount of money, and it also provides additional magic experience. I didn't really mention it previously because the chance of you getting useful, i.e. rune level drops at this point is quite low, but if you have been stockpiling any runite items, now would be a good chance to cash in on some additional XP and coins by using high level alchemy on those items. For non-Ironmen, high level alchemy offers a reliable XP per hour of 78k, and if you make sure to buy the correct items off the GE, you can simultaneously use this as a good money making method. Better still, you can high alch noted items to max out your efficiency, as well as combine alching items with other training methods, say teleporting to boost the XP that little bit higher. In all likelihood, for non-Ironmen, high alchemy represents the highest possible magic XP rate in free-to-play. It's only marginally more expensive than Crumble Undead, which we'll look at next, and at 65 XP, you will get more XP per cast than any of the combat spells. The downside is that you will have to manually click all 197,967 clicks the old-fashioned way if you want to do this to level 99. Just as a quick comparator, high alchemy, not including the time taken to buy items, will take you 164 hours to get to 99, and you should make money from this method. Unfortunately, this comes at the expense of manually click casting, which will definitely impact how efficient your clicks are, increasing that completion time. But if you combine high alching with other training techniques, you can use tick manipulation to get a really high overall XP rate, so it's definitely something to consider. So now we hit section 5, and I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball here. We're going to go to the Stronghold of Security, and we're going to train on Anku from levels 60 to 70. Why are we going to do this? We're going to do this purely because the max hit for the spell Crumble Undead, which you unlocked at level 39, is 15, which is only one less than Fire Blast. However, instead of using expensive death runes, you use the much cheaper Chaos runes. So although this means we're going to be sacrificing the maximum possible amount of XP, it does mean that we gain 41% more XP per coin, so it is a more cost-effective method. If cost is no option and you're going for maximum XP, then you can use Fire Blast. There is also the downside of this technique is that you will have to have the Skull Scepter unlocked in order to auto cast, and if you can't auto cast, I really wouldn't do this. So you might want to get the Skull Scepter before you attempt this step, or just skip to the next one. The Anku have some decent drops and are very easy to save spot. Obviously, just make sure you take some food for the transition down there. I'll show you a safer route on the screen and how to save spot them. You can see there in the background. You should be able to see a breakdown of the runes required and the number of Anku approximately you will have to kill to achieve level 60 to 70. Now, while I was composing this guide, I really had a change of heart. So I actually recommend that you've now got two options. You can either stay at the Anku all the way up to level 99. This is because I think the cost to experience ratio is probably the best you're gonna get. They have a very good hit percentage from my calculation, and it is significantly better than what you get from the enemies recommended in the next step. So it's really up to you. If cost is your main driver, then staying here using Crumble Undead with the Anku is probably the best option. However, if you're looking for something with a bit more challenge and better drops, then the enemies in the next section definitely tick that box. Also, if you don't have the imbued Skull Scepter, a guide to which will be popping up on the screen if it's ready, you may not be able to do this step, so you'll have to move on to the next section anyway. Moving straight into the 6th and final section of your training. This should take us from 70 to 99, and you guessed it, just like my range guide, which I didn't mention a link for, but now there's one on the screen, is going to be the Ogresses. I constantly go back to the Ogresses. As someone who plays a lot of Ironman, they are just a great way to get some good drops and can be very profitable. They drop a lot of gems, some reasonable runes, and some good rune drops, which all mean decent money. They also have a lot of health, which makes them relatively AFK and are very easy to save spot. They do obviously have quite high defense stats, but are slightly more susceptible to magic than they are range, and assuming we intend to cast Fire Blast continuously from levels 70 to 99, we will need approximately 1,240,032 air runes combined with a fire staff,
of course, and 310,008 death runes, price of which approximately will be on the screen now as well, and this will kill around 12,917 ogresses. That is a lot of big dead ogre ladies. 99 magic in free-to-play is no small feat. In fact, 99 in free-to-play is a very substantial challenge, and anyone who achieves 99 free-to-play stats is an incredibly dedicated and hardworking player, and you have my utmost respect. So I like to bring a bonus at the end of my videos, something a little bit extra, and what I would say is try to complete the Dragon Slayer quest, or at least start it. This will allow you to wield the best in slot shield or offhand item for free-to-play mages. If you're playing a pure mage, your options are very limited into what you can do. If you're playing a general account, you can use your giant keys, which you've no doubtly come across from training on the Hill Giants, to fight Obor. This guy drops the Hill Giant Club, which is the highest strength melee weapon in free-to-play. Equally, you can use your Mossy keys to fight Bryophyta and possibly get Bryophyta's essence and unlock the best magic staff in the game. If you are lucky enough to get Bryophyta's essence, you can go to Zaf with 50,000 coins. That's the staff guy in Varrock, and he will convert Bryophyta's essence into the staff for you. Next up, for anyone who hasn't unlocked the imbued Skull Scepter, this is probably something you want to do, especially just unlocks the option to train at the Anku, which, as you've seen in the guide earlier, are a very useful enemy to train on. As well as allowing you to cast Crumble Undead automatically, it also gives you a teleport to the Barbarian village. So maybe as a fifth and final tip, you want to kind of farm enough of the ogresses, or however you make money, to buy yourself your first bond and level up into members. Obviously, anyone who has watched my range guide, these are very similar, if not the same, but unfortunately that is the nature of free-to-play. It's quite limited. I'm sure Jagex do this on purpose to try and encourage people to get into members. Anyhow, that just about sums up this video. So I hope this has been of some use to you. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment and let me know if you have any tips of your own. I am eager to hear them. And this is the Lumbridge Knight saying peace out. So peace out, guys.